Hi, this is Dr. Ivans, and today I'll be giving a short presentation to give you an idea of what philosophy is all about. A quick look at the etymology of the word philosophy is a good place to start. Philosophy breaks down into the roots philia and sophia. The most typical translation of philia is love, and in a moment we'll consider how this kind of love differs from others. Sophia is often translated as wisdom, or knowledge, or some kind of know-how. And we'll have to save a discussion of the various meanings of Sophia until another time, but it is an extremely important topic. I'd like to distinguish three kinds of love. First of all, there's eros, which we are familiar with as sexual love. But I'd also like to include our other bodily appetites, such as food or drink, or whatever we desire for the sake of bodily pleasure. The Greek word agape is a word you may not have heard before, but it often designates the kind of love man has for God, or God has for man. Piety is the term we are familiar with in this regard. And finally, there's philia, which means friendship in general, and often is translated as familial love. But familial love, in an extended sense, as in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Not everyone in Philadelphia is biologically related. So the next question is how each of these relate to wisdom. What is the erotic relationship with wisdom? What is the pious relationship to wisdom? And what does it mean to be a friend of wisdom? Erotic desire can be characterized as desire in particular to have or possess something. In the case of the appetites, we desire to have sex, to have food, and generally to have pleasure. We want to consume the object of our desire. The main drawback of fulfilling this kind of desire is that it always comes back. The pleasure is fleeting. The satisfaction of bodily desires always requires that we obtain the object of desire over and over again. So what does this kind of love have to do with wisdom? Strangely enough, I think this kind of love exemplifies the attitude of the sciences, the model sciences being physics and chemistry and so on. The purpose of these sciences is to get the right answer, to figure it out for good. Thus, science is always building on itself, and we see this especially in the development of technology, which seems to have become the modus operandi of the sciences. And as we all know, as consumers of technology, we are always excited about the next best thing. We are always looking forward to whatever it is that makes what we have now obsolete. Piety is a kind of reverence and implies a sort of distance or gap between the object love and the one loving. Because the object of love is divine, eternal, and so on, it is not directly knowable by the finite being, a mortal being like us. Real knowledge of God is somehow inaccessible to a human being. Obviously, pious love has something to do with religion. And in religions in which faith is a key component, direct knowledge of God is impossible. Faith is, at least in some sense, belief without knowledge. Much of what God is and does and asks of us is mysterious, and so we must have faith that what God asks of us is for the best. Even if we cannot know the reasoning behind God's will, obedience is expected of us on the basis of the distance or the higher authority of God. Friendship or familial love is different from both eros and piety. Even if we say we have friends, we don't mean that we own friends or desire to consume them. Our friends have us as much as we have them. Friendship is something shared between two or more people. And while something about the other will always remain mysterious, there is not an imbalance between the subject and the object of love as there is between God and man. Friends communicate directly with one another and understand each other. In this way, friendship is among equals. So what does it mean that the philosopher is a friend of wisdom? The philosopher is in a curious position of desiring truth and at the same time recognizing that it may always be out of reach. Why then does the philosopher pursue the truth at all, if he believes it's unattainable? The philosopher recognizes another possibility, a way of maintaining a relationship with wisdom, which cannot be possessed. The model for this relationship is that of friendship, in which one desires to be with another without possessing them. A relationship in one recognizes the distance between two individuals as friends, but not the imbalance or unbridgeable gap between friends, as there is an unbridgeable gap between man and God. The philosopher wants to become acquainted with wisdom, to become closer with wisdom, even if the philosopher knows that he or she cannot possess this wisdom. This is the meaning of Socrates' skepticism, which he articulates in his famous and paradoxical phrase, quote, "All that I know is that I know nothing," unquote. For Socrates, philosophy is not a constant disappointment of failing to obtain wisdom, but is the principle of a way of life predicated on the recognition of ignorance. This recognition is not, however, a reason to give up, but the motivation to get started. Indeed, this is a peculiar relationship with wisdom, but Socrates was certainly a peculiar guy. Socrates thought that ignorance was not a defect of a human being, but the beginning of a human being's perfection. That perfection being the beginning of the pursuit of truth. The very movement from ignorance towards the truth, even if that truth is unattainable, is the basis for the philosopher's friendship with wisdom. And if cultivated and maintained with proper care, this relationship can last a lifetime. So thanks for listening, and I look forward to discussing these things further with you on the discussion forums.